let's get to understand this even more. I'm a journalist. We have a chief economist in the house, so you can expect that the level of knowledge will be different. We have Mr. Ayodele Akinwumi. He's the chief economist of United Capital PLC. Mr. Akinwumi, good afternoon. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
So let me start by asking, even though the basket was revalued, food, from your observation, is still the major contributor to inflation in the country, yeah?
That's correct.
Okay,
yeah,
all right.
Of the size, but the weights in the index.
Is that okay?
Well, you know, this is called consumer price index.
Yes.
In other words, you're going to look at things that consumers buy most, that they spend their income on. And that food is the major driver, and that's what we spend a lot of our money on. That's why when you have a major increase in the prices of food items, then the consumer price index tend to go up.
So is it all right, if we can go to the other one that has education and health, is it all right to have education contributing less than 1% as well as health? Does it say anything about perhaps our level of development, or are we in a good place with this?
We should be happy that education and health actually...
That they are not expensive.
Yeah, they're not expensive for us here because they're as important as food. But if they are very expensive, it means that the common man will not be able to afford them, which is not good for us.
But at the present time, the common man can hardly afford these two major welfare driving factors.
Well, you see, the point is that when you look at it, you compare it with what we pay for abroad, we should be thankful to God and thankful to our government that education in Nigeria is actually very affordable. And even healthcare, very affordable. Yes, people travel abroad, you know how much they pay for that. In Nigeria here, if you have a good job, you have insurance, health insurance, that you go to the hospital, you have access to affordable healthcare without paying out of from your pocket. So I think it's quite commendable that education is affordable. Healthcare is also affordable.
At least their contribution to inflation is not as much. Okay, so we're expecting the numbers from the National Bureau of Statistics for the month of July. When we see all of these major contributors, what do you think will actually push the numbers for July? Because we know that I think they gather their data the first 2 weeks of a new month. So what do you think we know that we had a bit of calm, Iran and US, so that brought down the price of petrol a bit. But I don't know what happened with food and all of that. What does United Capital see? Okay,
thank you very much. So our team in United Capital Research, we usually go to survey prices during the course of the month and to produce inflation forecast ahead of the official release by the National Bureau of Statistics. So our number is pointing to the fact that we may likely have about 15.35 this for July. And the major drivers are actually part of the things that you have discussed. The issue of deceleration in food prices. In the month of June, we saw a lot of escalation in tomato prices because of the seasonal impact. But that price came down a little bit in the month of July. Then the issue of crude oil price, which also came down and also had impact in PMS, the petrol, diesel, aviation fuel, in the month of July. We saw that moderating the inflation rate. So, and that, of course, will impact transport costs, will impact logistics, and then which also will impact food prices, because the movement of those food items from the farmland to the market means that it will be cheaper, all right? And with that, what we are seeing is that there was deceleration and the moderation in the price of these commodity items in the month of July. And so we'll expect that inflation rates, the headline inflation rates, will moderate a little bit to about 15.35 in the month of July, which is, of course, a bit lower than the 15.91, which you showed earlier, that was reported in the month of June.
Okay, so that is your observation for the month of July. We don't have the new escalation captured in there. So do we see this? I know that the next MPC is in September. It's too early for us to think that would drive the decision, yes?
Yes, it's too early. We still have August number, and perhaps even prior to the MPC meeting, we may likely have a September August number.
Yes, and then September.
At that time.
Normally
so,
to be towards the end of September.
Yeah, that we're going to receive that, yes. So we may not be able to say, yes, what MPC will do, but then we have some little direction based on what is going on in the country. We do not think that they are going to hike rates. We do not also think that perhaps the best they will do is to maintain the status quo.
Yeah, because we see tension again between the U.S. and Iran. So even though we have seen the slight drop in the price of petrol, we don't know how long that will last. And as you noted, we still have how many months more, before the meeting. But when we look at the biggest factor now, which is food, we talked about, a lot of Nigerians will ask, yes, United Capital is forecasting a drop in inflation numbers, and Nigeria will be like, well, so how does that get to me? Does it mean that prices will be lower or what? Because we know that when prices are lower, it's because of harvest season most of the time, when you have a lot of production and all of that. So can Nigerians expect that this deceleration that United Capital is forecasting will actually be felt in their homes and their pockets?
Between you and I, it was felt by you and I in the month of July. You paid lower PMS price in the month of July than in the month of June. You remember that prices of Dangote reduced the price, and therefore you and I paid cheaper. And that was what actually we are saying is driving the PMS price pricing the inflation rate that we are talking about. Going forward, what is happening now also, last week, they also reduced the price of PMS, which is also a major driver in inflation now. Yeah, of course, before the full devaluation, the deregulation of the oil and gas industry, particularly the downstream, you see that the movement in prices of crude oil prices globally was not affecting the price that you and I were paying at the filling station. But then because of the subsidy that was there before, government, irrespective of what the prices was at the international level, government was paying for that, the subsidy. But now, any little variation will be impacted in the price that you and I pay for it. And therefore, it means that we are paying more for that particular item, which also drives transport costs, logistics costs, and by extension, even though the price of food remains the same, once there is an increase in the prices of the things that drive the food prices, then it will likely add to the cost, and therefore that's what you are seeing now. But again, you see, if you look at January to date, we would need to also commend the government of the day for having foresight in supporting our own Dangote refinery. So you will say that inflation has just remained within the range of 15% this year, despite the huge increase in international crude oil price. Now, why? Because we are refining in Nigeria here. Early in the year, we released a forecast that by middle of the year, we will likely have single-digit inflation rates. But then because of the war that started in February 28th, that did not happen. Of course, energy prices went up. What we have been discussing now, in fact, affected oil prices all over the world, and we are seeing what we are seeing. But then, the fact that we are producing here, we were exporting, Nigeria benefited from the increase in crude oil prices, we were able to get more revenue, and then help to stabilize the foreign exchange market, and therefore, even despite the increases in some of those, the crude oil prices, we were able, the country was resilient, and we were able to augment for it in terms of stable exchange rates. And that's one of the reasons why we continue to support local content. And I hear you talking to your guest that just finished before me that even the wig, if we produce these items in Nigeria here, it means that we are less responsive to the external shocks, and therefore helps to create jobs in the first place, and then help to moderate the consumer prices that we are paying for. So, and that's one of the reasons why we will continue to support the government, showing them what they need to do to incentivize the economy, to incentivize entrepreneurs, to ensure that we produce things locally, increase local production, increase employment generation, and then ensure that price of items remain moderate.
Well, we certainly hope it remains moderate. Chief Economist at United Capital PLC, Mr. Ayodele Akinwumi, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.